Hey there, welcome to a new Photoshop tutorial with PSDBox. In today's tutorial I will show you how I edited this portrait, and let me show you the original image. Okay, so I went from this to this. Some of the things that we will see in this tutorial, for example, how I removed, you can see all of these hairs on the eyes and on her mouth. I'll show you how I removed those using frequency separation, how I smoothened the skin and keep the texture also using frequency separation. I'll also show you how I painted this hair. Here you can see I have hair here. I show you how you can paint that. I'll also show you how I changed the background. This is not the original background that you see here, and we'll end up with something colorful like this. Other techniques to retouch eyes and change the color of the lips. This is an intermediate level tutorial, so it's not really difficult, but I hope you will like it. So let's get started. On my website you will have the links to download this portrait. I'll give you a smaller resolution size just so you can follow with this tutorial, but you can use any image you want. This was the original image. Let me show you with the actual background, which was the solid gray. I then moved the portrait a bit, so let me close this and actually open the original image. Okay, so this is the portrait that I used. It's an image from depositphotos.com, and this is the image that I use. First, I will unlock it by pressing and holding the Alt key and double clicking on the background layer to make it as a regular layer, and then I'll move this away just a bit. You can also change the canvas if you want to have it like a HD format. I'll leave it like that for now. Okay, I just want to have the model here in the middle of the canvas. First thing I want to do is remove the background, and I'll use a really simple way of doing it, which is using the quick selection tool. This is a high resolution image, so I will not check the auto enhance. Well, actually let's do it, but the selection takes a little longer to be calculated, so keep that in mind. Now you can see this part of the background here. I also removed this. Press and hold the Alt key. Just remove this part from here. We will repaint this part of the hair, so don't worry about that. Make sure that the selection is around her fingers, and make sure that you get this part well selected. We don't care about these hairs. We will paint those back as well. There are other techniques to keep the hair, like overlaying images and using blend modes, because this background allows you to use, like, for example, the soft light blend mode, because we have this gray background, which you can use the duplicate of it, and the hair is brighter than the background, so you can use that kind of techniques. But I want to show how I painted back the hair, just so you can see it. Now I have the selection. I already have the layer mask created. I'll choose refine edge because I want to refine the edges, because this tool is not really that good on creating good edges. And actually, if I change to black and white, you can see how bad the edges look. So what I will do is increase the feather slightly to about 2 pixels. The amount that you put here on the feather depends on the canvas size. This is a high resolution image, but if you, as I said, I'll give you a smaller resolution size, sorry. So you should probably use a smaller feather. Then increase the contrast, and you will see how the edges start to get sharper. If you want, you can use it. You can check the on white or on black, so you can see the edges better. Let's move across the image. I'm pressing the space bar and just moving around just so I can see this a bit better. I'll probably shift the edges negative on the negative side, so I get rid of that couple of pixels that you get there of the original background. Okay, now I think I'll leave it like it is. I'll change the output to layer mask and click OK. And that's it, my background is gone. I should probably remove this part from here as well. Okay, now I want to create the new background right away because I want to have something there on the background. I'll create a new layer below. I'll name it BG for background. And here I used a gradient. So choose a gradient, adjustment layer. And here I used a 2-color gradient. I used a darker tone. Let me give you the color code, which is 3E, 3E, 3E. Okay, so this is the dark gray, and then a lighter tone of gray, which is B5, B5, B5. Okay, click OK again. While this one was at the location on the top selector here, just type the location at 86%, and here on the other one type 18%, the location 18. Okay, let's click OK, and now increase the scale a bit. First change the style to radial. I'll reverse it because I want the bright part to be inside, well, there on the middle behind the model, and I'll increase the size a bit, about 200 or something like that. We just want to have a soft spotlight there on the background. Okay, you can also use a color, but I used a filter on Photoshop CC. I used the camera raw filter, but we cannot do that in Photoshop CS6, so probably what I will do is add a solid color on top of this and use this blue color, blue tone, which I know I want to have on the end. So I'll choose color and then drop the opacity a bit. That way I have this colorful gradient, and then whenever I want to change it, I can just change the color, and you can see how the background color changes as well. I'll leave it to about there. Okay, great. Now let's take care of that hair that we lost there. I'll create a new layer below my model layer, and I'll name it hair. Okay, and now I'll zoom in at 100%, get the brush tool, and first I'll go back here to the model layer mask and remove parts of the background that are not removed, but I want to decrease the spacing. Okay, when you create the layer mask, when you use the refine edge, let me show you. You can also use this option here, the smart radius, and just paint over the hair like that, and you will recover part of the hair. But yeah, see that? You can recover part of it. Photoshop will analyze the image and will try to distinguish background from hair. And let's see if I can fill that back with black. See that? That way you can recover some of the lost hair there. Okay, but we will paint this back. So let me show you how you can do that. I'll put my mouse right here, and I want to have a small size. I don't want to have something that covers everything. I just want to have something like this. And now I'll take a look at how big this brush is by right clicking. You can see it's about 40 pixels, but even this is too big. 30 or 35 for this canvas size. Okay, so I'll create a new document. I'll type 35 and 35. And now I'll use the same brush. I'll zoom in, make this a little bigger, and I'll decrease the size of the brush to about 1 pixel. Increase hardness to 100%. Make sure I have the black color selected, and just click once there, like that, and then increase the brush size to 2 pixels, and create another point like that. Decrease it back to 1 pixel and put one there, and then probably another one right here. Okay, this will be our hair. Let's make yet another one about here. Okay, or maybe somewhere closer to here. like so. Okay, and we'll use this to make our hair. Now I will save this as a, if you zoom back at 100%, you'll see how small this is. Okay, I will save this as a brush, so I'll go to edit and choose define brush preset. I'll name it hair. Okay, and my brush is ready. I'll close this, or if you don't want to close it, just don't close it, just in case if you want to change the distribution of the hair. Go back to my canvas here, open the brush panel. You can also do it if you go to window and choose brush or press F5. You can see it here. You will open this panel, and here on the brush tip shape, make sure to decrease the spacing to 1%. You can see that way you create this lines here with those points that you created. You can also rotate this to have a better distribution, something like this. And then you can also on the activate shape dynamics, make sure everything here is set to 0 and you have everything here set to off, and check brush projection. Okay, now you can close this. And now you're ready to paint the hair. It's really simple. All you need to do is, with this brush, just press and hold the Alt key and sample from the image, and just paint like that. If you have a tablet, a graphics tablet, you can check the control to pen pressure, and that way you can control the how visible this hair is. Okay. Make sure you paint on this new layer that you created. See that? You can control how strong this is. Okay, it's a lot better. Let's do the same for the opacity or for the transfer. If you don't have a tablet, you can choose fade and increase the value here. Okay, but since I have this graphics tablet, I will do it that way. I don't like how that looks, so I'll do it again. Right here I want to do it something like that, and then just paint like this. I'm trying to connect the hair here, this two parts. Also make sure that you sample brighter tones. I want to have the precision mode on, and like that. See that? That way you can create multiple tones of hair. If you zoom back to 100%, you can see it looks pretty convincing. Okay, and you do the same here, but here it's a bit more difficult because we have this different tones of hair. Also, I would probably get rid of the entire part here of the hair. Let me get another brush and just get rid of this gray tone of hair from here, like so, because it doesn't look good. And now get that other brush that I created, which is this one. On this same layer of the hair, I'll sample from here now and just start painting. But every time you select the brush, make sure you check this. You recreate this. You check this option back here, otherwise it will not look good. And make sure you paint on the actual layer. Okay, something like that. Let's create this part of the hair as well. Okay, see that? And let me show you the before and after. Let me zoom out a little bit, and you can see how I reconstructed this hair, and it looks a lot more natural. And as you can see, it's not really that difficult. You just need a bit of practice, and that's it. Okay, the next thing we want to do is retouch the skin and soften a bit the shadows and everything, and for that we will use the frequency separation. We want to work non-destructively, so the first thing we want to do is create a stamp of everything. So for that I'll press Shift Alt Command E or Shift Alt Control E on a PC, and this will merge all the layers onto a new layer, which I will name light. And then I'll duplicate this with Control J, and I'll name this texture. When you do this, make sure that you have everything as you want it to be, because otherwise you'll have to undo your work and do it again if you have to modify something. So before you create the stamp, make sure everything is as you like. Okay, I'll hide the texture layer for a second. I'll go a bit quick here because I already have a tutorial explaining how to do this. And now I'll go to with the light layer selected, I'll go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur right here. And what I want to do here is blur the image until I can no longer see the skin pores and everything, but I'm still able to see the face features. Okay, so I'll click OK, and then I'll reactivate the texture layer, and then I go to Image and choose Apply Image. And here we have two windows. I will not explain how this works because this is kind of complex and difficult to understand, but just do what I do. Here on the source, on the layer, choose the light layer that you created. Leave the channel to RGB and set the blending mode to subtract. Okay, set the scale to 2 and the offset to 128. Okay, you will get this result. Okay, I'm not going to explain how these numbers work. Just do what I did here, and that's it. And click OK. You'll get a similar result to what you would get if you go to Filter and then use the high pass filter. Okay, but this is an exact match, or sort of we subtracted information from the other layer, so that's all you need to know. And now just change the blend mode of this texture layer to linear light. What happens now is nothing. Okay, if we actually group these two layers and hide them, you can see it's like nothing happened here. Okay, see that? I'm deactivating this group and reactivating it, and you can see nothing happens on the image. We have now the light and the textures separated. If I deactivate the texture layer, you can see the light layer, and if I deactivate the light layer, you will see an over sharpened image. Okay, we will use this to work separately on them. Okay, on each of them. First, I'll select the light layer. I'll get the lasso tool, and this is a technique that I saw on Flern. Aaron used a similar technique to work with big patches of skin on a model, and you can also use other tools, but this is the quickest one, and this tutorial is for quick editing. What I will do now is select, for example, this part of the skin which I want to soften. You can see it's really, if you activate the quick mask mode, you can see it's really hard. It's a really hard selection, so we need to soften it, and for that you can use the feather option. Okay, let's increase the feather to about 12 and remake the selection again and see how that looks. We cannot see how soft it is, that's why we activate the quick mask. Okay, even a bit softer, about 16 pixels for this canvas size. Everything depends on the canvas size, so if you have a smaller canvas size, you need to use different settings here. Even smaller, even softer, sorry. Let's try again. Yeah, that looks okay. Now, we have a soft enough selection, so I can now select this part. And now what I want to do is soften this even more, so I'll go back to Filter, choose Blur, and select Gaussian Blur again. I'm still working on the light layer, okay? And with this Gaussian blur, what I will do is soften this, but a little more. Remember that I softened this 12 pixels when I applied it to the light layer. Now I want to increase that. I want to make it even softer, about 20 or something like that, 25, 20, 25, depending. You can just look here and see what happens. See how that becomes a lot softer. This shadow is not as deep as it was. Click OK, and let's do the same right here. instead of going to filter, Gaussian blur, and selecting it again and going back to filter, Gaussian blur anytime, every time I want to do this, instead I'll press Control Command F after making the selection. So I'll select it and press Control Command F, and I'll reapply the same Gaussian blur whenever I do that. Let's do the same here, Control F. This does not affect the texture, and you'll see that. It keeps the texture on the skin because we have it on the other layer, okay? That's why we separated both the light and the texture. That's why it's called frequency separation. Okay, let's soften this shadow right here as well. This shadow here on the nose. And probably this expression just a little bit. It's not looking good. I'm doing it really quick as well, so keep that in mind. You don't want to over soften it, so I'm probably doing it right now. But anyways, maybe here on the neck as well. Right here. Okay, I think that's enough. Let me show you the before and after. Before and after, and we just worked on the light layer. Now we're going to the texture layer. I'll zoom in at 100%, and here we will work with the clone stamp. So select the clone stamp tool. Make sure that here on the sample you have current layer, okay? And we will use a smaller brush and probably a hardness of about 50%. I think it will work. And with this tool, what we do is just fix the texture here and clean the skin. We can also remove the hair, these hairs. Just take a look. I'll press and hold the Alt key and sample from here and just paint over it. And you can see how it goes away. Oops. And the light is not affected because we have it on the other layer. Okay, I can safely retexture the skin here and remove this white spots and get rid of the skin pores that I don't want. See that? Even this thing here, I can remove it. So I can clean the skin without worrying about the light. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's get rid of this hair over here. I'll use a smaller brush, press and hold the Alt key, sample from somewhere nearby, and then just paint over it. See that? It's like magic. It really works well. This technique is really awesome. At least that's what I think. Okay, it takes a bit of patience when you get to sensitive area like the teeth right here. Have to be really careful because you can mix textures that you don't want. I'm doing it a bit quick because I don't want to make the video too long. Just make sure you sample from the right place, and that's it. Increase the brush size. And let's move on. Okay, so that's how I removed the hair. I'll also get rid of this. Probably use a softer brush, and I'll get rid of this as well. As long as you sample from the right place, I have no problem. Okay, and you can do the same for this part of the image here on the eyes. That it's quite easy, but on tight places like this one where we have no room for error, it's a bit more difficult. Here you have to be careful and not mix the colors on the eye when you remove this hair from here. But also, since this is a high resolution image, if I zoom back to 100%, it's not even noticeable. So that's why it's good to work with high resolution images. The resolution of the image itself will hide not your mistake, but well, it will hide parts that don't look really that good when you zoom in. Okay, that's it. And okay, we see some spots here on the forehead. Just remove those and we're good to go. I will not spend more time here. I just wanted to show you how this technique works. Let's get rid of these spots here on the lips. So this is my clean portrait. Let me show you the before and after, without frequency separation and after frequency separation, before and after. Okay, so now the portrait looks a bit smoother and we still have the texture on the skin. Okay, on the next step, what I did is I used the camera raw filter in Photoshop CC, but now I'm in Photoshop CS6, so I don't have that filter. And that's why I used this solid color on the background, just so I can have some color there and not have it gray, because I knew I couldn't use the camera raw filter. And in camera raw, what I did is I changed the temperature of the image. I added more blue, and then I also used the split toning module. Actually, in Lightroom, if you go to the develop mode, you can see that here I used this slider to I moved it to the left, and then I added a bit of green as well, and then I used the split tone. Let's see where it is. Split toning. I added a bit of yellow, and then a bit of a blue. And then you can see how you can change the color of the image using this. But in Photoshop, we don't have that, so we'll have to use alternative ways. And one way of doing it, let's see, for example, you can use selective color, and we can add some blue on the blacks and a bit of cyan. Also on the neutrals, we'll add a bit of blue and a bit of cyan, and maybe a bit of green by moving the magenta slider to the left. And let's see on the whites, I don't want to mess too much with the whites, I'll leave it like that. So you can see we have this color. You can see how the background also changes. Let's add a color balance as well. On the midtones, we will add a bit more of cyan, a bit more of blue, and maybe a bit more of green. Try preserve luminosity. I don't think it works for this, and probably leave it off. Increase the reds on the highlights, and also a bit more of yellow. And on the shadows, I don't want to mess with that too much. I think that looks nice. See that before and after. And let me show you how it looks without these two adjustments, before and after. Okay, let's ungroup that and move on. Now the skin is too yellow, it's too green, sorry. So for that I used a gradient map, and I used this gradient, okay, because I want to recover some of the natural tone of the skin. And I changed the blend mode to hard light, and I set the opacity to 20%, okay? 20%, even that it's too much, so I'll probably, instead of changing the opacity, I'll change the colors on something a bit more towards the red, yeah, something like that. Okay, and instead of using this color, I'll use something a bit more blue, like so, but this tone a bit brighter. I think I like it that way. Okay, yeah, that looks a lot better. See that before and after. Next, I enhanced the eyes, and this is how I did it. I created a new layer, and I'll get the brush tool, and I'll use a hard brush and just paint like this with a blue color, and change the blend mode of this layer. Let's name it eyes, and change it to color dodge, and just paint with this blue tone with this hard brush, but make sure to deactivate everything here. I don't want to have shape dynamics. And see, that looks nice. If it looks too bright, for example, if it looks like this, just use a darker tone and that's it. Anyways, you can edit that after you paint them, so just do something like that, create the layer mask, and let's zoom in a bit and remove the effect from the top part of the eye, using a 100% opacity on the brush, and something like that. This is really simple. As I said, this is not meant to be a professional high-end retouch tutorial, but I think it's pretty nice for a personal photo, or for if you want to edit a photo of a friend or something like that. Now what I want to do is add a hue saturation adjustment as a clipping, well, clipped to the eyes layer. And now what I will do is select it, and if you decrease the lightness to 0, you can see the effect goes away. Okay, so that's what I want to do. Maybe also decrease a bit the saturation, and from here I can change the color using the hue slider. Okay, and something like so. I want it less saturated, and if you decrease the saturation to 0 and increase the lightness, what you do is enhance the natural color of the eye. Okay, so I still want to have that blue tint there. Okay, see that? Oh yeah, it's too strong. Before and after, yeah, it's too strong. I'll decrease the lightness even more. Something like that. And the portrait itself, it's too dark, so I'll add a curves adjustment above the gradient map, and I'll increase the lightness of the whole image like that. And maybe on the blue I'll do a split tone effect, and on the RGB I probably added too much light. See that? Let's retouch the blue again. Let's see what we can do on the red. I want to add a bit more of red, a touch of red on the lower highlights. Yeah, something like that. See that before and after? It looks a bit better. Now that looks nice. I have the eyes. Let's do the same. Well, change the color of the lips, and for that I will use a hue saturation adjustment. We have this layer mask which we will fill with black, so none of the effect is visible on the image. And now I'll increase the saturation and use a crazy setting here, and now I'll get the brush tool, and on this layer mask that I just filled with black, I will paint with white now to reveal the effect. Okay, now what I will do is open this and reset everything to their normal values, and now I will change the hue a bit, increase the saturation, and maybe the lightness a bit. So that's it. That's the change I wanted to make to the lips. See that? Not really a big deal, but definitely a change. Made them brighter and a bit more saturated. Okay, now one other thing that you can do to the skin if you want to make it even smoother is to use the mixer brush tool. I'll create a new layer and I'll name it smooth skin, Okay, and I'll get the mixer brush tool. I know that in some versions of Photoshop you don't have this tool, so if you don't have it, just skip this part of the tutorial. What you need to do here is decrease the settings here. The mix will leave it to about 30% and the flow to about 40. We'll check sample all layers, and it's very important that you check this option that says clean the brush after each stroke, and you have to deactivate this option. Load the brush after each stroke. You want to deactivate that because you want to have a clean brush every time you stroke. And what you do with this is simply mix the textures here. Let's see if these settings work. And it works, but it's kind of strong, so we will decrease the wet and the load, maybe the mix as well a bit, and delete and do it again. And all you need to do here is make sure that you go in the same direction as the shadows and this highlights, and follow a bit the shapes of the body. I have another tutorial explaining how to work with this tool. And what you will do here is get rid of the texture, but you can use it to soften the image. Yeah, even these settings are too strong. Let's decrease the mix and the flow a bit. But you can create this layer and then decrease the opacity, and you'll see it how it looks nice. But well, for this particular portrait I don't want to use it, but it's just so you can see the technique, and you can really make strange effects, like really soft skin with soft glossy skin for, like, I don't know, maybe cartoon characters or illustrations or something like that. For this particular portrait I want to keep a natural look, so it's not really looking nice for this one, but I'm showing you how to do it. If you want to use it, you can do it. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time here. Let's do some few strokes here on the neck as well, just so we can mix this. See the shadow right here? I'm following along. I'm not doing things like that. See that? It's just like smudging that, so you don't want to have that effect. It's really not good. Okay, and here on her arms as well a bit. It's just like painting with a real brush. You want to make nice strokes like that. And I think we're done. Okay, now the effect, as I said, is too strong. We got rid of pretty much everything here. So of course, make sure you don't go over the eyes. You don't want to do that. But now what I would do is I probably decrease the opacity to about 50 and have a mix between the two and soften the skin even more. Okay, so this is the portrait. One other thing that I want to do is add a vibrance adjustment. Increase the vibrance and the saturation a bit, and maybe levels. Increase the highlights just to have something a bit more bright. Okay, and now for the final touch, if you want to have something closer to the original, what you can do is go down here until you locate this texture and light, and deactivate everything that is above it. Okay, so what I will do is just go down here and reactivate all of these layers. Here too, light and texture. And now just select everything with Control Command A, go to Edit, Copy, Merged, and now reactivate all the layers. Right click and choose Show Hide All Layers. Show Hide All Layers. Okay, now we have the final result, and I'll paste that image that I just copied, which is this one, and I'll decrease the opacity to about 50% and change the blend mode to soft light to have a bit more of contrast. Now the levels are too high and the image is too bright. Okay, something like that. And you can also leave the normal blend mode if you want to. Okay, and this is the result. Let's zoom out a bit and maybe even more levels. Okay, so this is the final result. I hope you liked this tutorial. As I said, I tried to make it simple, but I think we got a nice result anyways. So that's all for today. See you on the next tutorial.